The chill of the linoleum floor seeped through the thin blanket, a familiar morning ritual for Maya Roberts. At 17, she was a ghost haunting the edges of a life she was supposed to be living. By day, she was a student at the prestigious Northwood Preparatory Academy. By night, she returned to a cot at the Serenity House shelter, her entire world contained within a single, dented locker. Tucked away in the very bottom, wrapped in an old t-shirt, was a heavy, gold-plated belt with a gleaming eagle on the front. Golden Gloves regional champion, it felt like a relic from another person's existence, a life of roaring crowds and the clean, sharp scent of a boxing gym, a world away from the antiseptic smell of the shelter. Northwood Prep was a transfer, a scholarship, a desperate last chance brokered by a social worker who saw a flicker of hope in her academic record. It was also a special kind of hell. Before we go any further, I want you to drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from. Your support means everything, and make sure you subscribe, because the story we have for you tomorrow is one you absolutely cannot miss. 3 days before she first walked those polished hallways, Maya had thrown her last combination at Santino's gym back in the city. The rhythm of her gloves hitting the heavy bag was a language she understood better than any other. It was a rhythm of survival, of controlled fury, of turning pain into power. That power, that coiled stillness, followed her as she stepped off the city bus and walked onto the Northwood campus for the first time. The place was an architectural masterpiece, a sprawling collection of brick and glass that looked more like a university than a high school. Manicured lawns gave way to gleaming marble floors inside, and the trophy cases lining the entrance hall were filled with generations of silver and gold cups for sports she'd only ever seen in movies, like lacrosse and rowing. The students were a different breed, dressed in casual, expensive clothes that screamed old money. They were clean, polished, and moved with an unshakable confidence that came from never having to worry about where their next meal was coming from. Northwood was everything her old, crumbling public school wasn't, but she knew that pristine surfaces often concealed the deepest decay. The whispers started instantly, following her like a cold draft. Conversations would abruptly halt as she passed, replaced by furtive glances and poorly hidden smirks. She hadn't even found her assigned locker when the shouting began, echoing from around a nearby corner. "Come on, Thompson. You gonna cry? Fight back." Her pulse quickened, a fighter's instinct overriding the student's desire to remain invisible. She rounded the corner and saw the scene, a modern-day coliseum. A tight circle of students, their phones held high like digital torches, were all recording. In the center of the ring, a lanky, studious-looking black boy with thick-rimmed glasses was being shoved against a row of lockers by 3 well-built white boys. His books were scattered across the floor, and their designer sneakers were grinding the pages into the pristine tile. One title caught her eye, its spine cracked, Advanced Topics in Quantum Mechanics. This kid wasn't just smart, he was a prodigy. And here he was, being treated like trash for the amusement of a jeering crowd. Maya didn't think. She acted. She pushed through the wall of bodies, the sea of phones parting as she moved. All eyes, and all cameras, swiveled to her. "Back off him," she said, her voice low but carrying with an authority that cut through the noise. The 3 bullies turned, their sneers morphing into expressions of intrigued cruelty. The one in the center, with a politician's smile and cold, calculating eyes, was Blake Carrington. He was the undisputed king of Northwood's social hierarchy. He grinned, a predator who'd just seen a second, unexpected prey wander into his trap. "Oh, look at this. A 2-for-1 special. What a nice welcome gift." And with that, the real school year began. Blake circled her slowly, his movements theatrical, designed for the audience. "Or what? You gonna go file a complaint with the principal? Maybe write a strongly worded letter?" His smirk stretched wider, a mask of contempt. "This is Northwood, sweetheart. We don't really take complaints from your kind." The insult was intentionally vague but perfectly clear. Maya's voice dropped, becoming a razor's whisper that was somehow more menacing than a shout. "You know exactly what I mean." That line, that direct challenge to his authority, cracked his perfect facade for just a fraction of a second. An ugly truth flickered in his eyes, the raw, unvarnished entitlement of a boy whose family name was plastered on half the buildings in town. This wasn't just a hallway to him, it was his territory, his kingdom. Dylan, the stocky redhead to his left, puffed out his chest, a loyal knight ready to defend his lord's honor. The crowd, sensing the shift in tension, pressed in tighter, hungry for the drama. Everyone wanted to see the new girl fold. But Maya wasn't built to fold. She was built to counter. Her stance shifted subtly, her weight distributing evenly, her hands loose at her sides but ready. Years of relentless training hummed beneath her skin, a dormant power waiting for a signal. She kept her expression flat, her eyes locked on Blake. "Funny," she said, her tone devoid of emotion. "I thought this was a private academy that still accepts federal funding, which is paid for by everyone's taxes." The statement landed with a thud. It was a shot of inconvenient reality into their privileged bubble. A few students in the crowd actually flinched, their amusement souring slightly. Carter, the third bully, built like a fire hydrant with the mind of a wrestler, stepped forward, undeterred. "Funded or not, it doesn't mean it belongs to a bunch of monkeys." The word sliced through the air, sharp and vile. There were audible gasps this time, a ripple of uncomfortable whispers. Even some of Blake's own admirers shifted on their feet, a line having been crossed. But nobody stopped it. Nobody stepped in to help. The phones kept rolling, capturing every ugly second as if it were a scene from a primetime drama. In that moment, Maya's pulse paradoxically slowed. The world narrowed. It was the calm she always felt before the first bell of a fight. Her eyes, cold and focused, locked onto Carter. "Say that again." Blake, suddenly realizing that his controlled spectacle was about to spiral into a raw, unpredictable brawl that could have real consequences, stepped in, his tone suddenly conciliatory. Whoa, easy now. It's just harmless fun, right, guys? Just a little hazing for the new kid. No harm done." His crew, though confused by the sudden retreat, fell into line, taking a half step back. Blake shot a final, triumphant smirk over his shoulder as he began to walk away. "See you around, Owen. Both of you. This year is going to be very interesting." The crowd dissolved as quickly as it had formed, the students scattering like roaches when the lights come on, already buzzing with the latest gossip. Left in the wreckage of the hallway were Owen Thompson, his glasses cracked and his advanced physics textbook ruined, and Maya, standing over the scattered pages like a silent guardian. She bent down and began gathering his things, her movements efficient and calm. "You okay?" His voice trembled, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief as he looked at her. "Another black student. I thought I was the only 1 inch. Maya offered a small, grim smile as she handed him his books. "Well, you're not alone anymore." By the next morning, the dark circles under Owen's eyes told a story of sleeplessness and long-term anxiety. He explained the grim reality of his situation in hushed tones as they walked to class. "They've been at it for 3 years," he whispered, his eyes constantly darting down the hall, checking for threats. "It's everything. Gum in my hair, my locker glued shut, accidental shoves in the stairwell. The teachers just looked the other way. I went to Principal Harris once. He just sighed and called it boys being boys." Before Maya could formulate a response, the shadows reappeared. Blake, Dylan, and Carter materialized at the end of the hallway, blocking their path, their smirks loaded with fresh malice. Well, Blake purred, his voice echoing slightly in the corridor. "How was your first night in paradise, Maya?" And just like that, round 2 began. Blake leaned against the lockers with an air of practiced nonchalance, as if he owned every inch of the hallway. "Hope you found suitable accommodations," he said smoothly, his fake smile never reaching his cold, blue eyes. "I know housing can be a real challenge for people like you." The barb was aimed at her presumed social class, but for Maya, it was a direct hit on the secret she guarded with every fiber of her being. "People like me," she shot back, her voice tight. "Transfers," he corrected himself quickly, the politician's grin returning. Always a tough adjustment, moving to a school with a higher caliber of education. Dylan laughed, a harsh, braying sound. "Yeah, I bet the schools back in the city didn't exactly prepare you for a place like this." Maya's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice level and cool. "I'm managing just fine." Carter's smirk was as sharp as a broken piece of glass. "Maybe you can tutor Owen here in street smarts. You know, teach him how to be more authentic." Owen's head snapped up, his voice barely rising above a whisper. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Oh, come on," Carter chuckled, enjoying the discomfort. "You're so buttoned up, so proper. Maybe hanging out with Maya will help you embrace your heritage. You know, learn some urban culture." As if on cue, the phones came out again. Blake held his up, framing them like a documentarian capturing a rare species. "Smile for the camera, you too. Northwood's first diversity study group." "Put that phone away," Maya snapped, her patience wearing dangerously thin. "It's a public space," Blake shrugged, a classic bully's defense. "I can film whatever I want." "Say something for posterity, Owen. Come on, maybe you can rap for us." Owen's face was burning with a deep, humiliated flush. "I don't rap." "Sure you do," Dylan grinned, stepping closer. "It's in your DNA, isn't it?" He started beatboxing, a clumsy and offensive caricature that sent a wave of snickers through the growing crowd of onlookers. Maya took a step forward, her entire body tensed, but her tone was as sharp and precise as a perfectly thrown left hook. "His culture is being the future valedictorian of this school while you three are on your second attempt at junior year." The insult landed. For a fleeting moment, Blake's smug mask of superiority cracked, revealing the insecure bully underneath. Then, just as quickly, he twisted it into a performance. He clapped Owen on the shoulder with enough force to make him stumble. "Exactly. Top of his class, headed to Yale." A real credit to his people, the words were coated in a sickening layer of condescending praise. "One of the good ones," Dylan added, piling on the thinly veiled racism. Maya's fist twitched at her side, an involuntary reaction born of years of training. She wanted nothing more than to wipe the smirk off Dylan's face. But just as she was about to move, Owen's hand shot out and grabbed her arm, his grip surprisingly firm. "Don't," he whispered urgently. "This is what they want. They want you to hit them." The shrill ring of the school bell broke the tension. Blake slipped his phone back into the pocket of his expensive jacket, his grin wider and more triumphant than ever. "See you around, study partners." As the hallway emptied, Maya let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. She looked at Owen, a new respect dawning in her eyes. "That was smart, stopping me." Owen's hands shook as he straightened his stack of books. "I've learned how they operate. They say the most vile things imaginable, pushing and pushing until you snap. The second you do, they flip the script and play the victim. They make us look like the aggressors." He forced a weak, tired smile. "Just one more year. Then I'm gone. Full scholarship to a university 3,000 miles away from here." But as they sat in history class later that day, Maya felt Blake's eyes on them from the back row. He wasn't just watching, he was plotting. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that escape wasn't going to be that easy. In the weeks that followed, they formed an unlikely but unbreakable alliance. Owen, with his strategic mind, taught Maya how to navigate Northwood's treacherous social and academic landscape. He helped her with calculus, and in return, she started teaching him the basics of self-defense in the deserted school gym after hours. She showed him how to stand, how to balance his weight, how to project a confidence he didn't feel. "Bullies look for easy targets," she explained, adjusting his footing. "You don't have to win a fight. You just have to make them think you're not worth the trouble." They became each other's shield. When Blake's crew tried to accidentally trip Owen in the cafeteria, Maya was there to steady him. When they made snide remarks to Maya in the library, Owen was there with a cutting, intellectual retort that left them momentarily speechless. Their friendship, forged in the fires of harassment, became their sanctuary. So when prom was announced, Owen asked her to go, not just as friends, but as a unified front. It was a statement: they would not be intimidated, and they would not be hidden away. Prom night arrived like a scene from a movie, a whirlwind of glitter, strobing lights, and overwhelming floral arrangements. The ballroom of a local luxury hotel had been transformed into a fairy tale kingdom. Maya's gown, a deep, shimmering purple she'd found at a second-hand store and altered herself, made her look like royalty. Owen, in a sharply tailored tuxedo, stood taller than she'd ever seen him, his usual nervousness replaced by a quiet, newfound confidence. They walked in together, heads held high, and a wave of whispers immediately followed them, chasing them like shadows across the dance floor. For a little while, it almost felt normal. They slow danced to cheesy pop songs, laughed at the DJ's terrible jokes, and picked at the overpriced chicken dinner. Blake and his crew lingered at a table across the room, watching them, their presence a constant, low-grade threat. But the trouble, as Maya knew it would, was inevitable. It began at the punch table. Blake slid up beside her, his expensive cologne thick and suffocating. "You look beautiful tonight, Maya," he murmured, his voice like poison wrapped in silk. "That dress really brings out your exotic features." Her hand tightened on the punch ladle. "Don't talk to me, Blake." "Excuse me." "I'm complimenting you," he said, stepping closer, invading her personal space. "The least you could do is say thank you." I said no. Her voice was louder this time, carrying across the room. Several heads turned. A few phones, almost by reflex, began to rise. Owen appeared at her side, his expression a storm cloud of protective anger. She said, "Don't touch her." Blake's smirk spread wide. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He gave a subtle nod, and Dylan and Carter rose from their table, moving to flank him like a pair of snarling bodyguards. Within seconds, the confrontation escalated into a full-blown scene. The circle of students formed again, phones up, recording from every angle. They were hungry for the climax of the drama they'd been watching all year. They wanted to see Maya lose her composure. They wanted to see Owen finally snap. Instead, the tables flipped with breathtaking speed. What Blake and his crew hadn't accounted for were the weeks of quiet preparation. When Carter lunged, not at Maya, but for Owen's phone to stop him from recording, Owen didn't flinch. He used the simple defensive stance Maya had taught him, absorbing the shove and staying on his feet. At the same time, Dylan reached out to grab Maya's arm. Her reflexes, honed by thousands of hours of training, fired on pure instinct. It wasn't a wild swing, it was a masterpiece of kinetic energy. She pivoted, and a short, sharp strike to his solar plexus drove all the air from his lungs. He dropped to his knees, gasping like a fish out of water. The ballroom exploded into chaos. Blake, his plan in ruins, swung a clumsy, wild punch at Owen. But Owen, no longer an easy target, ducked under the blow, using Blake's own momentum to send him stumbling backward into a decorative ice sculpture. Carter charged at Maya, but it was like a bull charging a matador. She sidestepped his clumsy attack, and he careened past her, crashing into the punch table and sending a tidal wave of red liquid across the pristine white tablecloth. For the first time all year, the bullies were not in control. They were flailing, exposed, and utterly humiliated. By the time the chaperones and hotel security managed to pull everyone apart, the damage was irreversible. The footage, captured from dozens of angles, spread through social media faster than a wildfire. It wasn't the blurry, chaotic clip of a typical high school fight. It showed Blake's leering provocation, Dylan's aggression, and Carter's lunge. Most importantly, it showed Maya and Owen acting not as aggressors, but in clear and controlled self-defense. Blake Carrington's carefully curated image of the charming, popular king of the school was shattered. His cruelty, his racism, and his entitlement were caught in high definition for the world to see. The Carrington family, with all their money and influence, tried to spin the story, to paint Maya as a violent transplant and Owen as an accomplice. But the internet doesn't forget, and a dozen videos told a truth that no lawyer could twist. Maya and Owen didn't walk away from that prom as victims. They didn't even walk away as heroes. They walked away as proof. Proof that silence doesn't win battles. Proof that fighting back doesn't always mean throwing the first punch, but it does mean being ready to throw the last one. And proof that the reign of bullies only lasts until someone has the courage to stand taller. And if you're watching this right now, let me ask you, have you ever seen justice hit back this sweetly? If you want more stories that flip the script and deliver the kind of satisfying ending that makes you cheer, don't forget to subscribe and stick around. Because the next story we have is going to shake things up even more.